Welcome to the Mojo for Musicians podcast from Manny Cabo Media, where we dig deep into today's top strategies to help you take your music career to the next level, along with real, raw, and uplifting conversations with industry professionals that are making moves, making a difference, and making the best versions of themselves to inspire you to do the same. And if you have a voice with a powerful message to share with the world, then head on over to tinyurl/Mojo Official Discord for the best community of voices in the metaverse. Support for the Mojo for Musicians podcast comes from Stedman, tools for the studio and beyond, because your voice deserves to be heard. Sennheiser, inspired by music. And Cranium, scientifically designed products for bald, shaved, and buzzed heads. So get your head in the game and own your dome. And now, here's your host, Manny Cabo. All right, Mojo Maniacs, good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Wherever you guys are tuning in around the world, welcome to another fun-filled episode of Mojo for Musicians, a source of inspiration for, of course, my beautiful ecosystem of global artists. And as always, I want to thank and so grateful for my sponsors at Stedman, Sennheiser, and Cranium for making these shows possible. And we're always looking for some wonderful sponsors to join the team. So if that's you, send us an email at info@mannycabo.com. But right now, let's get back to the show. And I'm excited for this one because not only do I have a special episode for you guys, but a very special guest and someone who I consider my music brother, if you want to call him that, because he is, and you might recognize him. He's been all over the place musically, American Idol, the band Seventh Heaven, One Voice, most recently making international headlines. This is one of my favorites in the prog rock world with the Cyberiam. Or perhaps you might even recognize him from a tiny little show called The Voice, where him and I had the most epic rock battle of all times. So let's bring on to the stage my dear friend, and who I like to call the Windy City Wonder Boy, Keith Semple. What's up, Keith? Welcome to the show, man.
Manny, I need you to introduce me everywhere I go.
I get that a lot, man. I like to edify my guests.
No, it's just like walking into a bar or anything, just everybody stop if we could have your attention, please.
That formal intro. Meanwhile, comes Keith going, I don't know what he's doing.
Welcome, everybody.
That's right, brother. It's Keith Semple from Chicago in the house.
We thought it was safe to go back on The Voice.
Exactly. Dude, there's so many things that I'd love to discuss with you. And we don't have ample time, especially in a half-hour segment. But with respect to your music career, I know you've been doing this for a long time, and quite frankly, the early part of your career, if I remember correctly, almost didn't happen because of your residency status and, your age. And there's so many variables on there. So I want to talk about that, believe it or not, and you were in your 20s and it was certainly a difficult time for you, that whole stranger in a strange land. But then again, I never thought of you as a fearful guy. So perhaps you're like, oh, this is just another obstacle that I'm going to get through. But nowadays, you don't really have to rely on that. You don't have to rely on coming to the States because Web3, the internet, social media has changed the perspective on so many musicians. And I personally know tons of musicians that are blowing up. So talk to me a little bit about that, the discrepancy between back then and how things have changed. I know the pandemic was upon us, and I would see you perform live. You'd see me perform. It's a totally different world. So elaborate on that, man. Just curious from your perspective.
Yeah, it was weird. I had, obviously, for those who, as you just said, like we know each other from having met on The Voice, and I actually had entered, Pop Stars The Rivals, which is basically the equivalent of that British version back in 2002.
Right.
So that's 20 years ago now. And
it's crazy, right?
Yeah, I literally for a year or two there, I still would be well known there, but it was like Keith Semple was the most, recognized name in the country for a while, in my country, just because it was on the TV every weekend. People are tuning in, millions of people. But even then, at that time, as you say, there was no way for yourself to do any self-promotion other than whatever you got on a TV show that was asking you to be part of it, or a radio station or whatever. There was no like go on social media and do your own thing. There was no get your music there. So we were at the mercy of record companies and all this sort of stuff.
The notoriety essentially came from the huge entities that wanted to invest money and time in you guys, of course.
Right. I mean, the only reason ended up here in America is just because a guy who did, stuff over here, Seventh Heavens owner, saw videos of me performing the big arena shows in
Right.
the UK. I mean, literally, that's just happened to come across me on MySpace back when it was a thing.
Oh my God, MySpace. I remember.
Yeah. And then I wouldn't be here, ironically, if it wasn't for MySpace,
Yeah,
because something just made me, the way most of those things you got back then were all spam,
of course.
and something just felt different about this email. And I was like, well, I'll reply. What harm can it do? And 3 weeks went by, no reply. I thought, oh, well, it was spam, but what
Of
can you do?
course.
And boom, it's like, you know what? We've looked at your stuff. You've got the job. Do you want it? And that was September of '06. And I moved to America in October of '06.
See, that's pretty awesome because, we're both similar in that respect because I don't really trust too many people or too many things or situations, but I do trust my gut.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I think you know me well enough to know now that, like, you were right when you said, like, there was no fear. It was just a let's go on the journey here and
Right.
see what happens. Like, and I've always been that way. Like, when I decided to leave Seventh Heaven, it was just simply because I didn't think they were working. They were working hard, but I didn't think they were working smart. You
Mm,
know, they would, they were still doing 6 shows a week in the summer, and I'm like, well, I'd like to maybe enjoy a summer as
right.
well at
Right.
some point. Why not take the 2 or 3 real big shows we're being offered and enjoy ourselves and have a life as well? And and that just wasn't, and I wasn't the boss, so I didn't get to make those
Of
decisions.
course. So they essentially weren't in alignment with your workflow or the whole working smarter mentality.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a hard worker for sure. I mean, I think the first thing we noticed about each other, I think that's what made us connect, is that we both work really hard for what we do.
Yeah.
And there's no option to feel, if you know what I mean.
Right.
It's you just get on with it. Whatever level you are at is what you're at, but you're trying to make a living, and get your stuff out there. You believe in what you do,
Right.
and that's all I ever have done. So,
Well,
as
as
you
a
were,
testament, I got to interject as a testament to you, and you're right. Like we put our egos aside. I never really had ego with respect to me performing, and neither did you. And we came together for our performance. I learned so much from you. And granted, you've been doing this a lot longer than I have. I bet I was a late bloomer. I was blessed with a voice, but shit, I had to cultivate the crap out of my voice. And being on that show and meeting people like yourself with the experience, with the knowledge, with the repertoire of songs, I was able to feed off of your energy. And we had a blast. And you know what? The wonderful thing that I got from that and the feedback that I got, and I'm sure you got even after I left the show and you stayed, was we provided that element of realism and entertainment and bond when we were on stage. I mean, we got a lot of heat for, and I'm going to say that it was your idea. I followed your lead, right? You're like, I'm going to blame you on
well,
this one.
I tell you what, it was my idea, and I tell you what, I'll stick by it
Right,
forever, because the one thing that they remembered in their heads was those two
right,
cheeky
right.
bastards, you cheeky bastards.
Cheeky
Like they,
bastards.
they totally were like annoyed at us because of the framing and the blocking and the
Yeah,
camera and the lights. And I was like, you know what though? That we had that the room
yeah.
itself
Hmm.
on
Yeah, it was
fire.
lit up. It really was. And you could tell evidence by the faces of the judges. Adam, they're like, whoa, what the hell is going on here? And you could see the cameraman stumbling, trying to get back in frame. Dude, it was epic. It really was.
Yeah, and the thing is that, like, I think what you said, it was really weird because we saw everybody else's battles, right? Or we saw everybody else preparing,
Yeah.
and me and you are walking about, like, it was almost funny. Like, me and you were chilling out in the
We're
pool.
like nugging each other, hugging. Dude, we're gonna have a blast. We're like, what is that? How can they be so relaxed? But therein lies a secret to the success of what we do. It's never been a competition. We just, again, to quote you, enjoy the journey, live in the moment, just have a blast, man. And because if you don't, you miss it. It goes by in seconds. I remember having, well, I meditated a lot. I was always very positive. I had so many contestants in my hotel room explaining to them, guys, you already won, man. Forget about the 90 seconds you're going to be on stage. Just live in it, man. Have some fun, experience the moment.
And it's funny because I had so many people come up to me after, local people here that are big fans of my
Yeah.
music here, and they would say things. I mean, they mean it sincerely, so it's nice, but they would say things like, "Oh, you got robbed, you know, like that shouldn't have been the song that you
Yeah,
sung." And I mean, blah blah blah. And I was like, hold on a minute here. It doesn't matter who picked the song for me to sing, or if I got voted in or right. I felt like I nailed that song when I got up there.
sure. And you did.
Now, I have no complaints about how I performed that song. And in the moment I managed to get all the things in I wanted to get in, you know, the different parts I thought about in my head. I did the performance parts I wanted. I did the, you know, all that. I couldn't complain. And at the end of the day, it was a voting thing that, you know, people obviously went for maybe the music they maybe the younger kids knew a bit better,
Sure.
maybe fine, not a problem. But that's what I say to them. I'm like, no, no, no. You know, you get the old, oh, you should have won this whole thing type thing. My response is honestly, the best singer on the show not only won, but should have won any show he ever enters in his entire life
Yeah.
because Jordan is quite possibly the best singer I've ever
Yeah,
heard
he's
in
a beast. Yeah, he really
my
was. So proud of him too, man. So many obstacles that kid had to endure, and yet he just shrugged it off like they weren't even there. And then that shows the tenacity. It shows the strength of not only a singer but as an individual. Man, it's tough, you know.
yeah. But you know what I mean, though. You only get a voice like that once in a generation,
Yeah.
almost, or maybe at least a discovered one. And I always thought, up until our show, I always thought Adam Lambert was the best vocalist ever on a
Hmm.
show like that. I thought he was just so naturally
Yeah.
talented, um, and then Jordan. And I remember sitting down. I think you might have been in the room that day. There was about 10 of us, and we were in doing like a warm up and a sit down and singing with the coach.
Right.
It was
Deborah Bird, right?
it was either Deborah or Trelawney, you know, and I just sat there and they asked us to do this little warm up thing, and you know, we all started. I was somewhere in that mid range. I covered about 2 octaves, and Jordan had already gone from one below, was already one above, and still had another octave to go.
That's
And he just,
crazy.
it's like his voice just didn't have a limit. And I was
Yeah.
like, I just had never heard anything like
It
it.
was
And then,
just elastic and effortless, man. It's like, wow. Really
so
was.
I have no regrets at all. And that's another thing too, is like, you know, well, this is the thing. We've become good friends. You know, I've seen. Well, I haven't been able to get over and see you, but in your format. But I've had you come over, for those who don't know, and perform live with me in Chicago.
Blast. That was a blast.
It's an incredible experience.
Yeah.
And then just to give everybody, to give Manny props here, as Manny came out, not only supported me with my Cyberiam project, but ended up taking some of the most badass live pictures we've ever had. And
Well,
and
now
I think
hold on, because that's question number. I'm going to get to that, man. I want you to elaborate it because that's a big deal. That's a big segment. Just hold off. Don't spoil, okay? Please don't spoil me because yeah, hold that thought. So I'm going to segue into question number two. But yeah, it was an incredible journey. The voice really offered so many different perspectives. It's a humbling experience, and of course, I got to meet you and an additional plethora of killer voices. You know, Victor and Regina, all these people. I mean, too many to name. But moving on to the next thing is this is a little bit more sensitive and more personal. And again, all my questions, the reason why I asked them, because I know it's going to serve a huge community of people that are experiencing or going through the things that we are. Now, you've had health issues, you're back, and I state this because good friends of mine in the industry, you know, constantly call me. I have a good friend of mine from season 6 of The Voice, Megan, who's constantly crying about her neck. It's painful performing every night, and you've been really transparent on social media about it. How are you handling that? Because you have a pretty grueling road schedule, not only with Semple, obviously yourself, your solo shows, now the Siberian. How are you maintaining? And first of all, how are you feeling?
it's funny you bring that up because I had major back surgery on March 14th.
Mm, I saw that.
And
Yeah.
basically, since then, I was almost, as you would say, a changed man, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And then about 3 weeks ago, I have had a bit of a turn for the worst again, and things are not doing too well. But in that space of time, I felt like I was 20 again, and I was like, oh, well, this has helped. Um, but yes, it is weird because part of who I am is my physicality, my
Sure.
activity, my movement. Um, as you know, you've seen me perform. You've been with me on stage perform. I mean, it's all about
Come on, you're
the
talking to a guy that knows you jumped off stage, cracked 3 ribs, got back up on stage. You're like, you're a me, man. You're a warrior. You just get the show done. But this is different, man. This is perpetual. Like, when you're messing around with nerves and stuff that completely triggers your central nervous system, like I've dropped on my knees by one subtle wrong movement. So I can only imagine the pain that sometimes you must endure. And you've got to forge ahead because there's, the level of expectation is upon you with your fans and your supporters.
Yeah, this last few weeks actually have been an example of that. Like because up until about 3 weeks ago, I was back to doing all the things that I mean, I've been working out. I'm back to coaching tennis again, which is, for those who don't know, is the other big
Yeah.
sort of hobby love of mine. I used to play for Northern Ireland for a long time, and um, when you're good at something, it just releases those endorphins or whatever that allow you to
Absolutely.
and I need that at this point in my life too. I need that kind of uh, it's not only a fitness thing, but
It's a
it's
deviation, man. I do the same thing. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I definitely, it's been a struggle. But I mean, as you say, like I had surgery on March 14th, and on April 15th, so 1 month later, I was on my first full US tour representing Cyberiam,
Yeah.
opening up for a band called Riverside, and then I had a 2 weeks off and went right back for another month with a band called the Pineapple Thief,
Yeah.
and had one more big show out in Montreal, Canada, right after that. Like, it was like a 2.5 month grueling schedule
Yeah.
of travel, and then home, and then summer for Semple band starts, which is, as you know, not easy either. So
No.
not easy, but at the same time, I love it, and I'm trying my best. And so I'm right now, right before I got on here to chat with you, I was doing my stretching. I was, working on trying to get myself mobile for the day. And then it's like, what can I get done at the level I'm at right now, which
Yeah.
isn't great? What can I get done? Because I'm performing Friday and Saturday night. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need to be able to get back to a movable level that I can get up
Sure.
there and do.
Now
And
let,
of
now
course,
let me ask you this. You know me, I'm huge on mindset. Has that helped you? Are you working on certain things mentally? Because sometimes, physical pain can be overshadowed by, the power of your mind itself and the energy that you filter in those areas. And I know it's helped me because sometimes, you have to say to yourself, you know what, I got this. I'm going to do this. Because if we wallow and if we focus on the negative or the lack, that's what we get. That's what our energies are attracting. Are you finding yourself having to work more on the mindset, or are you still just tackling the physicality of the whole issue?
well, the mindset, that's actually what I guess is lucky about my, what you say, my mental constitution, is that I am almost perpetually positive.
Yeah,
And I know that that's why me and you have had a bond, is because you can't always be there. I have had low moments during this back,
of course.
you I have broken down a couple of times, but most of the time I wake up in the morning and I go, ah, shit, this really, really hurts this morning. But it's like, you know what? I'm going to go kiss my girls good morning. I'm going to get that, all the good, mojo I can get, and get my day started, and then just see what I can get done, or what I can
Of
do in
course.
that level. And so at the minute, like right behind me, as you can see, the studio here, I'm working on recording not only Cyberium's third album, which is coming up, but this is basically my home at the moment
I
because,
know. I've been there, man. It's amazing. And you've
yeah,
and you've actually added some compartments to it lately.
yeah, I added a whole other drum studio. So now there's an 8x10, like sort of almost vacuum sealed
Right.
vocal booth between. So now I can have my drummer.
What size is it?
It's 8x10.
I, I
Are you
just
making?
I just wanted you to say that. 8 by 10. I'm always fast. I love languages, man, and the accents. But I just wanted you to. I'm such a tool, aren't I? 8 by 10. I love it.
Yeah, it just means I can record it. I can record my drummer now in a
Yeah.
separate room. I have to like have 6 pairs of headphones
Yeah. Of
on to be.
course.
I
That's
need
always
to.
fun.
Yeah, no, man, you got me talking about about the music, we'll be here for two
Well,
hours.
that's why you're so good at what you do, brother. It's the passion. You know, you exude the passion. I think you have to be, especially in this industry, in the entertainment industry. You have to have this level of fixation, the focus. You know, this adamant nature, because you got to have thick skin, man. It's not always going to be, you know, bowl of cherries. It's feast or famine in this industry, and you know, you have to be aggressive with your marketing, with your talent. You're constantly learning new material, growing, expanding. A lot of people don't have that endurance, but that's a great way to segue into question number three, which you touched on, Cyberium. You know, um, this is your latest venture, which I'm proud of. And yes, I was there. I got to witness the glory and the power of what you guys are doing, you know. And you've had international success compared to, you know, Dream Theater, Porcupine Tree, these incredible names in that genre of music. And of course, photographing you guys and seeing the entire visual spectacle. I can honestly say, dude, I know that guy on stage. We're on TV together, you know. A really proud moment for me because I live vicariously through the successes of other artists. I do. I love that. I support people who rightfully deserve it. But how did you ideate the concept of it? Was it, you know, and I love the guys, man. All you guys, you know, you got Tommy, you got Frank, you got Brian. You couldn't have picked three better guys to join on this journey with you. And obviously, you complement one another, not visually, but also musically as well. So where did this whole idea? Because I never thought. I mean, I knew you were like me. You're a rocker, but I never saw you as the prog rock guy. I mean, I love prog. You know, Rush and Genesis when it first started from the people that I know. So talk to me a little bit more about that, man.
Yeah, you know what? It's really weird. Like I've been a prog fan since about 96.
Mm,
And I was just getting into music as everybody does. And all of course that teenage time is sort of what solidifies, almost it's the soundtrack to your life, as they say,
yeah, yeah.
So it's a funny story. I remember there's a UK tradition where when you're 17, you go on a Spanish holiday. Basically, you book a group holiday with your friends, and you bugger off to somewhere like Magaluf or Mallorca or one of these Ibiza, one of these like party islands, right? And you get absolutely freaking hammered, and because you can drink when you're 18 legally, but
Wow, they actually drink in the UK and in Ireland? Who knew?
yeah, it's been suggested. But there's nothing worse than a British person on a holiday. That's all I'm gonna say. There's a whole
No,
about
dude.
that is that
I know.
go mental. But the thing was, we were just getting into Dream Theater then, and so we brought this big ghetto blaster thing, and we had on our balcony we're blasting out images and words, their big album, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, from other people, it's like turn that shit off, like, and we were like, listen to this guitar solo, like some random girls at the pool side were like, what is this nonsense? But
Yeah,
it just put me on a path where I was obviously making a living doing popular music. I was writing popular
sure.
music and stuff, but on the side I was writing progressive rock for myself. And in 2016, sort of after The Voice, basically, I basically just was like, what? Why am I not doing, at least in some part, the thing that I love the most in the world musically, which is prog? And I decided that was it. And I went to see Dream Theater live at Chicago Theater, and I'll never forget it. So Frank, my keyboard player, he's actually good friends with their keyboard player Jordan in Dream
Nice.
Theater, and we're in the foyer, or however Americans say it. We're in the foyer of the theater,
Yeah.
and all you hear is this, and he goes, "Keith Sample," and all this goes dead silent, because what's the first thought? There's going to be a fight, right?
Yeah.
It's
What's
that
this guy
it's that
doing here? Yeah.
and Frank, and the whole place goes silent, and Frank just shouts over everybody. He goes, "I want to play keyboards for you."
Oh, wow. Hey, hey,
And I,
gotta be bold, bro.
who is this dude? Sort of a thing. And we chatted, and I think about a week later we were in writing, and we started. The first thing we wrote was the intro to "Don't Blink," which is the big song that seems to be our kind of, the big song that everybody seems to be drawn to.
Yeah.
Listen to Cyberiam. It's written about a Doctor Who song or a Doctor Who
Right.
episode.
I remember
Uh,
you explaining this to me. I'm a big fan of Butterfly Effect, but go ahead, keep going.
yeah, oh yeah. So then, Tommy was was in a bunch of bands. He was in the a Tool. He's in a Tool tribute
Yeah.
band. Unbelievable.
Yeah, dude,
He
I
had,
love Tool, and let me tell you, when I see his lives performing, he's got all the different camera angles. Like Tommy's a beast, man. I had the pleasure of doing visuals for him during the pandemic, like flyers for this guy. It was the most fun experience for me because I'm like, all right, I got to make this look good because this guy's an incredible percussionist, man. But go ahead.
oh, he's brilliant.
Yeah,
He again. I only find him because he was friends with my guitar player, and then I only find Brian because Tommy recommended Brian
yeah,
because of his talents, and then me and Brian have been like this powerhouse of writing, like where we get in and sometimes we're like this,
yeah,
and we're like hooked together. Other times we're button heads, and
yeah.
other times we're like, no, it can't be that way, and yes, it's got to be that. And there's this mad passion, and then what happens is it's like two stars colliding, and you get this. What happens afterwards is this beautiful, like
Supernova reaction.
nova of music that comes out, and then Tommy and Frank just are like the literally the stardust,
Yeah,
like the sprinkle that
sure.
makes the whole thing work, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
And
they bring it all together and tie it all in. I
really,
get it.
and it's an incredible thing. And like even right now we're writing album number 3, and I'm literally just pretty much like just in heaven constantly when we're doing that, because I just know that the final product is going to be as good as any of the other ones we've done.
Yeah.
I'm
And that's
proud of it.
great. That's a great feeling because let me tell you, man, being in a band, it's like marrying 5 other people. And sometimes it's not as smooth as we'd like it to be. So I completely get it. And that has to be so refreshing for you.
Oh yeah, I mean, because in Semple, it's all about the performance, right? It's all
Yeah.
about
The show,
people
sure.
coming to a festival or whatever. They want to go home going, I had a great night tonight. That band was great.
Yeah.
With Cyberium, it's all about sit back, close your eyes if you want,
Yeah.
and listen to
It's
the
an
experience.
experience. Exactly. Yeah.
And every song is a journey of some sort, or it's a story of some sort, or it's a message of some sort. And the good thing again is, Cyberium allows me to write about topics that I could never write about in
Yeah.
the pop world. I mean, I get into some deep stuff there.
Yeah, there's you can get away with a wide gamut. And all this time, I thought you guys did it for the girls. Girls love it. It's funny, but Rush really are pretty vocal about that because there's usually guys, they're in the audience because it's all about the musicianship. But no, I get where you're coming from,
Yeah,
seriously.
our next album will be called Sausage Fest.
Sponsored by Oscar Mayer, the Cyberium. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. But yeah, listen, I'm proud of you, man. I'm so excited for you. I'm looking forward to this third effort and the tour. And I know you guys actually broke it up. Sometimes you did acoustic sets for the Cyberium too. So explain that. Explain the difference between the full band. Obviously, it's huge, but for you, how was that? Performing to an audience where it's just you, man. Which you're no
that
stranger for solo shows, but still,
that only came about because a couple of these bigger bands wanted openers, but they didn't want the hassle of the logistics of a
sure,
whole band on and off stage.
sure.
And they asked if I would do an unplugged version. I was like, how could I play an unplugged
I would
version?
have said the same thing. I gotta pull back because I gotta see how he's gonna pull this guy off. I mean, Keith is great, but this is gonna be a fun one to watch.
I realized that when I do acoustic shows, normally I have a little kick drum sim. So it
Right.
basically simulates a kick.
Yeah.
And I realized if I did this right, I could basically take our songs and take all the bits of the song that would work as a one guitar, one vocal, one drum
Yeah.
type of a scenario. So there's no guitar solos or anything because I couldn't do that without a backing, and
Of
I didn't
course.
want a loop pedal where I'm looping over myself because I didn't want it to feel in any way there was any recording. I wanted it to just be like this guy has just played this prog song by himself,
Mm,
one guitar, one vocal, and one kick
yeah.
drum.
So
And
I compare it to like a Patrick Stewart play. You remember when he did the Christmas Carol? He played like 24. I think Patrick Stewart's
yeah,
brilliant, right?
I seen it. I was in London when I
Oh my
saw
God.
it. It's one of my favorite memories of all time was seeing Patrick Stewart live because I'm a huge fan of
So am
Patrick
I.
Stewart.
And
Uh,
I compare you to that because let's face it, prog rock, man, it's a really elaborate and skill oriented genre of music, man. And to pull that off on a solo level, that just builds your credibility, the integrity of not only a front man, but as a musician within that community. So I think that's fantastic, dude. Good for
You'll
you.
appreciate this, Manny. Here's what sums up a pop show, a Semple show, say, or a Maroon 5. Let's go big. Let's say Adam, right?
Let's go, Adam. Yeah.
Let's go Adam. So Adam plays to Buenos Aires or somewhere, and there's 70,000 people,
Yeah.
and there's lights, and there's this, and even a Coldplay performance is probably the most interactive you can get, I would say, of all the performances. They're incredible, and it's during the show, during the song, everybody's singing along, everybody's screaming, everybody's waving.
Sure.
And then at the end, it's basically just a slightly increased volume of that thanks. It's basically, oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. It's very visceral too, man. 100%. Yeah.
In a prog world, it's 90% dudes, 70% of them are 55 to 65 or older.
Sure.
And this is them during the song, like this. I'm sorry, I forget. It's their arms are folded.
Yeah. That demographic is rough, man, and it's rough to really understand what they're feeling at the time. So that pressure, that silence, there's a power in that pause, and it's a long pause at that.
That's what was so rewarding for me, though, is that the song ended, and this room of, say, 1,000 people are like this, looking at you, and you're like, what happens if I finish and it's still silent? Right. Like, will that be like the tumbleweed of all tumbleweed? And then I finish the song, and it's like, wow, like just
that's awesome.
And they show their appreciation, not only for the talent, but the ability to be able to, from what I was able to do is translate something in that's so progressive into a one person band, essentially.
Sure. Dude,
and
that's awesome.
That I enjoyed that a lot.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you relished in the moment, brother. But that's exactly why you're successful doing what you do. But listen, let's wrap this up. I know the time is upon us, the winter seasons, as they would say, and it's my final question. And then after that, I want you to elaborate on how we can talk to Keith Semple, find out a little bit more about what's going on in the Semple world, the whole 9 yards. But my last question is my signature question, of course, which is, what's your mojo, brother? And I know what your answer is going to be. What keeps you going day in and out? What's this consistency? How do you embrace the motivation even during the physical hardships? The differences of creative opinions, if you will, all that nonsense. And believe me, there's a plethora of those going on. But how do you keep it going, brother?
There's 3 or 4 things, and obviously the most recent one would be family, as in my own family that I've made. Of
course.
My wife, my kids, and there's always that desire to get up in the morning and do it for them.
Yeah.
And there's also the desire to have enough of a success that I can then use that to enjoy the time with them outside of the right. And that's something I take very, very seriously. The thing that has, and then of course, passion for what I do. So I love music, love it. Can't live without it. It's in me at all times. And that's for pop or rock or prog or anything. I just love it. I need to do it.
Right.
It's like it's in me. Same with tennis the tennis is something that was my, the way people think about the Super Bowl here is the way I think about the Grand Slams and tennis. It's my life. But the fourth thing, and that's been it since I was about a teenager, and this is the thing that comes as a shock to people who don't know me, but this, is that my belief in what happens when we die essentially is that I'm not going anywhere. And so I think there's a finite time here. There's a window. There's like 14 billion years, and then there's this tiny little window, like that's sliver thin.
Yeah, you have to leverage it. Yeah, man. I get it.
And I only got that time to live. And when I'm gone, I'm gone. And that will be it. And I'm like, what is what can I pack in that little, will it be 50 years? Will it be 90 years?
Yeah.
Will what's going to happen, Manny, right? I'm going to turn 99 and they're going to discover the cure for death. the day after I
I
die.
gotta laugh with you because I can fully empathize, man. Right? And you think it's gonna happen that way. But listen, man, we got 1 minute left, and it's true. I appreciate all your responses, spot on. And knowing you, especially after what we've been through, man, I get it. I completely relate to everything that you've said. But how do people find you? What's to look forward to? Quick, you got 1 minute. Shoot.
Good. Well, sempleband.com. So that's SEMPLE band.com. They can find all my stuff on there. In fact, that's links to Spotify and all that as well. Watch the videos because they're real fun. The Cyberiam.com, which is spelled Cyberiam. There's 2 full albums and a big long song, which is your favorite, The Butterfly Effect. And then we've got a 3rd album coming out. We've also got music videos, the whole works. We've got all our live videos of, the performances we did when we opened up for Marillion and the Pineapple Thief and Riverside. And
Nice.
there's just a lot of music there. If you're interested in hearing how a little guy that was on The Voice and on these TV shows has also got this prog world, those are the 2 websites, and you can get everything from those. Or reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook, all the usual places, but not TikTok. I haven't got that far yet.
You get there, bro. Eventually, knowing you and how you hustle, you will, man. Listen, it's been a blast. Great, as always, catching up. I can't wait to see you guys on the road. Maybe capture a few images and join you once again on one of these many stages of the world or even in Chicago, bro. I got nothing but love for you and wishing you much abundance and success, Keith, as always.
Love you, Manny. Thanks for having me on, man.
You as well, brother. Be well. Take care, Keith.
Peace and love.
This has been a Mojo for Musicians podcast. If you're a musician, industry professional, or a voice with a powerful message and wanting to share your mojo and stories of success with our listeners, or simply share some feedback on today's episode, we'd love to hear from you. So send us an email at info@mannycabo.com. And don't forget to join the Mojoverse on Discord for the most powerful community of voices in the metaverse at tinyurl/Mojo Official Discord. Thanks for listening.